our people.
Wrongfully arrested in public, and now a settlement for an Indigenous man and the Bank of Montreal. Also, the scathing arguments at the sex assault trial of Headley frontman Jacob Hoggard.
That is not sustainable for anyone to try to live like that.
Staffing shortages and heavy workloads. A look at the burnout facing vets across the province and what it means for animal care.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with a settlement between the Bank of Montreal and an Indigenous man and his granddaughter. The pair was trying to open a new account at a downtown Vancouver location, and instead they were wrongfully handcuffed by police outside. The CBC's Leanne Young now on the man returning to the branch today in search of closure.
Surrounded by supporters and his health-sick family, Maxwell Johnson shared his relief.
It's been a long 2 years of litigation with BMO, and I'm really happy we're coming to a conclusion.
Johnson and his granddaughter reached a settlement with the bank on their human rights complaint.
It's not only hard on my family, but it's hard on our culture. Our people. They felt what I was going through too.
The settlement includes an undisclosed payment to Johnson and his granddaughter, an apology that took place in Bella Bella, Johnson's home, education on Indigenous culture, and a gift from Johnson, who's an artist, signifying reconciliation to be displayed at the bank.
We're hoping that, this is the first step for some changes within the finance institutions.
Speaking exclusively to CBC shortly after the incident, Johnson and his granddaughter were trying to open an account when bank employees became suspicious and called police.
I kind of figured they thought we were trying to do something.
They came over and grabbed us and led us outside, handcuffed us, told us we weren't under arrest, we were being detained, and then they read us our rights.
Johnson came back here to this BMO branch on Burrard to announce today's settlement. No one was available from the bank to speak to us on camera, but they sent a statement.
In part, it says, the bank is pleased about the settlement. This was an important step toward reconciliation and hopes the Johnsons reach the resolution and closure they deserve. Johnson says he's long forgiven the bank, but what happened took a toll.
Getting emails and texts and phone calls about updates with BMO set my anxiety off. So it was really hard. It was really hard for my family to see what I was going through.
He closed his BMO account today and hopes everyone's learned a lesson.
Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and speak the truth.
His human rights complaint against Vancouver police is still outstanding. Leanne Young, CBC News, Vancouver.
Transit police hope you can help them find a man suspected of assaulting a teenager on a bus. And just a warning, some people may find this video disturbing. Transit police say on April 1st, just before 2 p.m., a 17-year-old girl got on board the 335 bus heading to Newton Exchange in Surrey. She's there on the left. Police say a man then got on board, started acting agitated, and blocked the teen from leaving her seat. He then punches her. As other passengers move away, she bends over to get her glasses that were knocked off. He then knees her in the head. Police say she wasn't seriously hurt physically. The suspect was last seen leaving the bus at 152nd and 48th Avenue. He's said to be South Asian, 30 to 40 years old, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, bald, and wearing a black winter jacket, jeans, and black runners. If you recognize him or know where he is, you are asked to call police. A major drug trafficking investigation involving the FBI in Los Angeles has led to the seizure of what RCMP call a smorgasbord of drugs. Officers raided several houses in Vancouver and Victoria last fall. They found more than 2 kilos of cocaine, that's almost 7,000 doses of LSD, and other drugs. 300,000 in cash and 15 ounces in gold were also seized. 6 people were arrested, but no charges have been laid just yet. RCMP say the investigation is ongoing. Dramatic testimony at the start of Headley frontman Jacob Hoggard's sexual assault trial in Toronto today. A young woman accusing BC-born Hoggard of sexually assaulting her as a teen. She told the court that today he encouraged her to share sexually explicit texts with him when she was a 15-year-old superfan. In opening statements, prosecutors allege Hoggard repeatedly raped a teen girl and a young woman in separate incidents in 2016. Hoggard has pleaded not guilty to the charges. Well, today is the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit People. Crowds gathered at Vancouver City Hall to recognize Red Dress Day. It's an event to honor and bring awareness to the missing and murdered and support the families of those lost. The colorful gathering featured speakers from the Musqueam Nation and performances from the traditional dancers and drummers. Red dresses are hung as a visual reminder of the many Indigenous women who are murdered and missing across Canada and the U.S. The annual event started in 2010. Some trails in Stanley Park are now closed off because of more coyote sightings, but this time it's not because they're out to bite park goers. It's actually to make room for denning season. Coyote mating started in January. Then came new litters of pups. Passers-by may spot a few new coyote parents active in the park as they look to protect their dens and look for food to feed their young. The Vancouver Park Board says they're not likely to get aggressive. Instead, they'll try escorting passers-by away from their dens.
If a person is on a trail that's near a den, the coyote might look like it's following you, but really it's just making sure you get far enough away from its den so that you're not a threat.
The Park Board is advising everyone in Stanley Park to keep their distance, refrain from feeding them, not to litter, and to keep dogs on a leash. Denning season could last until June. Staffing shortages and heavy workloads are plaguing vets around the province. In the Kootenays, one clinic had to cut overnight hours to keep staff from burning out. But as Brendan Coulter reports, vets in the region are joining forces in order to provide 24/7 service.
Good job, Maverick. Good boy. Good job, buddy.
Jasmine Hardy looks after good boys and furry friends at the Tanglefoot Veterinary Clinic in Cranbrook. But staffing shortages mean every week she's answering calls in the middle of the night and even performing emergency surgeries before sunrise.
It just kind of translates into a lot of emotional and physical exhaustion.
After a year of offering 24/7 services, the Tanglefoot Clinic had to cut back overnight hours to protect staff's mental health. To resuscitate emergency after-hour services in the region, 7 East Kootenay clinics are coming together to form a collective, ensuring at least one veterinarian is on call every night.
By having that group effort, it can be sustainable for our staff so that they do not get completely burnt out and overwhelmed.
Tanglefoot manager Jeff Cooper said it's not ideal to make people from Fernie drive to Cranbrook at night or vice versa, but it was their only option to keep 24/7 available in the region. He remembered a weekend when one of his vets took 90 emergency calls.
As you can imagine, that is not sustainable for anyone to try to live like that.
Cooper adds the clinic responded to 700 after-hours emergencies in the last 10 months. Heavy workloads and a shortage of veterinarians have been issues for years, and the problem got worse during the pandemic when more people adopted pets. Rob Ashburner from the Society of BC Veterinarians says staffing challenges do exist across the province,
but they are most acute in the less urban areas, the East Kootenays, the North, those areas where it's harder to attract professionals to.
The province has announced it's doubling the number of subsidized seats for veterinary students this fall, from 20 to 40. But the practice manager of Tanglefoot says he'd also like to see an easier path for foreign-trained vets to work in BC. Hardy, meanwhile, says she's optimistic.
We really want to provide that for the clients, but we also want to keep ourselves healthy so we can come to work the next day.
Brendan Coulter, CBC News, Cranbrook.
The SPCA is urging people to take down their backyard bird feeders and empty all bird baths. It's in an effort to stop the spread of avian flu across the province. The society says the highly contagious virus is shed from infected birds to healthy birds through saliva and feces, which can live in bird feeders and baths for several months. Fallen seed is especially dangerous because birds can ingest the droppings that land below the feeders. People are asked to contact the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative if they see sick or dead birds. The move comes a day after the officials announced bird flu had spread to 2 more poultry flocks in BC. The face of a popular BC clothing brand is about to change. Aritzia founder Brian Hill is stepping down as CEO. Hill, seen here closing the Toronto Stock Exchange, will stay on as executive chair of the board. Founded in 1984, Aritzia has grown into a household name with 100 stores across North America. Sported by celebrities included Meghan Markle, Kendall Jenner, and Hailey Bieber. A change in leadership comes as the company continues its expansion plans in the U.S. We have some breaking news now to tell you about in Burnaby. There's been a serious car accident involving a pedestrian on 11th Avenue near 16th Street. Photos from residents show an ambulance and a semi-truck among several police vehicles. Burnaby RCMP say their criminal collision investigation team is responding. Road closures are expected for several hours, and as we get more updates, we will let you know. But Dan Burrett will have the latest tonight at 11 o'clock. While BC is still catching up with surgeries postponed by the pandemic, the World Health Organization is releasing staggering numbers tonight on the true toll of COVID-19. As the CBC's Philip Lee Shannock explains, the data shows a massive gap between the number of estimated deaths and actual deaths from the disease.
By official counts, the numbers were already staggering. More than 5 million people died in just 2 years.
We have to remember that behind these numbers are people.
But the World Health Organization looked at pre-pandemic mortality rates to estimate the true worldwide toll of COVID-19.
We know that data is the lifeblood of public health, and not all is good in the world of data.
Instead of 5.4 million officially reported deaths, it estimates just under 15 million excess deaths. The WHO says the wide gap between its estimate and the deaths reported is a wake-up call.
Over 70 countries do not have accurate cause of death reporting.
The WHO says Egypt, Pakistan, and India suffered about 9 to 12 times the number of deaths they reported. India claims less than 500,000 people died in 2020 of all causes and disputes the WHO's method of calculating excess deaths. That's the actual number of deaths compared to what would be normally expected in similar periods, according to this epidemiologist.
It's not a perfect measure, but in a time of a pandemic, the excess is almost all going to be due to the infection, mostly direct effects, but sometimes it's indirect effects. So it could be the case, like in developing countries, someone with a heart attack that didn't have COVID, but nonetheless died, was because they weren't able to get to the hospital.
Here in Canada, parts of the country are in a 6th wave. This epidemiologist says some may take issue with the WHO's estimate, especially those who debate whether people whose deaths are linked to COVID should be counted differently from those who actually died of COVID.
It's a pointless argument. A lot of people died that wouldn't have died otherwise. Had there been no pandemic, millions of people who died over the past couple of years would still be alive, and you can't argue with that reality.
The WHO says governments need to accept the true toll of the pandemic in order to make investments in planning and precautions, so we are prepared for the next one. Philip Lee Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
While the pandemic witnessed an unprecedented vaccination drive, health officials say shots for diseases other than COVID have fallen behind. One of them is for HPV, or human papillomavirus. The CBC's Lauren Pelly looks at efforts to restore immunizations to pre-pandemic levels.
This is the HPV vaccine.
At this pop-up vaccine clinic north of Toronto, it's a race against time. Healthcare workers are trying to get kids and teens caught up on shots they missed during the pandemic.
So you haven't had any of the 3 shots yet, right?
12-year-old Morgan McIntyre is about to get her first dose of the HPV vaccine.
I'm just gonna roll your sleeve up a bit.
Her mom didn't want her to fall behind.
It's an opportunity to prevent something that could be catastrophic, so let's do it.
HPV shots can prevent infection from certain types of human papillomavirus. It's estimated that at least 70% of sexually active Canadian adults will get exposed at some point. And those infections can put people at risk of various types of cancer.
Cancer won't wait.
This family physician says lengthy pandemic school closures in Ontario cut off access to school-based vaccination programs, where grade 7 students typically get the HPV shot for free.
The estimate is that if we don't get this cohort, there'll be more than 6,000 cancers over the next 4 years.
There's a patchwork approach to HPV vaccination across Canada, yet other provinces like BC, Alberta, and Quebec also experienced a drop in immunization rates since COVID first hit. Medical experts are now calling for expanded programs in schools and broader access in pharmacies.
When we have this vaccine available, sitting in fridges, we need to put it into arms.
It's called HPV vaccine.
Inside this hotel in Toronto, medical teams are trying to get a particularly vulnerable group caught up, school-aged refugees.
If you don't know how the subway works, if you don't know where the vaccine clinics are, it's very difficult for them to go and find where they can get the vaccines that are missing.
For Canadians who missed the chance to get vaccinated for free, getting an HPV shot as an adult in some provinces can mean paying more than $600, all out of pocket. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's go now to Ukraine, where Russia is intensifying its offensive in the east and the south. The CBC's Ellen Morrow takes us to the vast steel mill in Mariupol, where civilians took shelter weeks ago.
The fierce onslaught at the Azovstal steel factory, the last pocket of Ukrainian resistance in Mariupol, Russian forces are trying to wipe out. Ukrainian officials are accusing Russia of breaking a ceasefire meant to help free civilians from the hell they've endured, trapped in the factory's bunkers. The enemy doesn't observe any norms or laws, says this commander from the Azov regiment. The fighters holed up in the plant. They're killing people in front of the eyes of the whole world. The Kremlin has denied the allegations, claiming it's opened a 3-day humanitarian corridor out of the factory. Tonight, despite the reports of fierce fighting, the UN says another operation is underway to try to evacuate civilians from the plant. The first group of evacuees were rescued last weekend, carrying heavy trauma from their weeks underground under bombardment. We were told that the bomb shelter wouldn't survive a direct hit, that we would be buried alive there. This evacuee says that there would be a mass grave. Ukrainian officials say Russia's offensive is intensifying. Russia says it killed some 600 Ukrainian soldiers overnight, a claim that can't be verified. This was the aftermath of attacks in the eastern city of Kramatorsk. At least 6 missiles hit a residential area, according to Ukrainian officials, wounding more than 20 people. One moment it sounded far away, this resident says. Then the roof started crumbling down. These sisters are now in Kyiv after fleeing Mariupol, unable to say goodbye to their mother before they left. She's still there, and they don't know her fate. It's impossible to look at old happy photos of us now, says Nicole. My heart shatters. I don't understand. So much heartbreak, so much loss, everywhere across this country. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Lviv.
Severe flooding continues to ravage the Peguis First Nation in Manitoba. The community is now quite literally underwater, and at this crucial planting time, so are many farmers' fields. Here's Cameron McIntosh on what forecasters are seeing in the days ahead.
From the air, the chief of Peguis First Nation assessing the damage with federal officials.
It's never been this high. This land here is never flooded. This is the first time.
While on the ground, Suzanne Sinclair is trying to save her father's home. Like many here, just trying to avoid being forced out.
Yeah, if we evacuated, he would end up, my my roommate for a while until the house was fixed.
1,400 people have had to leave. Another 800 may soon follow, as the federal government brings in more than 100 people to help with the flood fight, aided by the province in lieu of a formal request for the military.
We work with communities to make sure that resources within Manitoba and within our resources within Indigenous Services Canada are exhausted first.
South of Winnipeg, along the Red River Valley's Highway 75, similar scenes. Dikes are being closed off as many farm fields look like lakes. Here along the Red River, water is being diverted around the city of Winnipeg, but not as much as initially feared. It now appears the Red River will crest earlier and lower than initially forecast.
Peak level for the Red River at Merson is going to come over the weekend.
Still, says the province's top flood forecaster, the water will stay high for most of May.
It will take time for the water to come below the banks.
In other words, those who aren't flooded by now likely won't be. But some roads, including the main highway to the U.S., will remain closed for a while. Instead of a tractor, the best way onto these fields is a Sea-Doo.
Our cropping plan is out the window now.
For Paul Sabourin, it all limits options for getting a crop in.
The corn, the sunflowers, the millet, all those crops are likely out the window now. So we just have to alter our cropping plan.
For Peguis, it's the third major flood in 12 years. It will be a while to fully assess all the damage. And for those that had to leave, maybe a long time coming back, even when the water drops. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Okay, here, not so bad, that's for sure. But you've got your hood on, so I'm guessing it's coming down on you.
Yes, Anita, it really hasn't stopped since the steady rain moved in this morning, and it continues across Metro Vancouver. At least southern Manitoba is not getting a system like this in the long-range forecast. This one for us will be easing in the next few hours. Let me show you what it looks like on the satellite and radar. It's yet another Pacific frontal system. The cold front is sliding through overnight tonight, and you can see back in the Pacific some clearing skies. So hoping to get some sunshine tomorrow. But this system today came with winds up to 40 kilometers per hour and temperatures only around 9 to 10 degrees. If it weren't for the flowers, it almost felt like a fall storm. I didn't say it. Low pressure system that tracks across us, then headed off to Alberta, but then it sits and spins, and it's that counterclockwise flow we get around a low that'll help drag down a pool of cool air for the weekend. So you can see with the little precip that we get on Saturday and Sunday, it's actually going to fall as yet more snow for the alpine levels, continuing to amplify our snowpack. And that means temperatures for us in Metro Vancouver struggling to get much above 10, 11, 12 over the next couple of days. And keep in mind our 1981 to 2010 seasonal, 16 degrees for Vancouver. Tomorrow we will see some sun, Kelowna 17, 14 through Cranbrook, and I know you're getting some late evening thunderstorms. Be on alert for those the next few hours. Prince George a 9, and Prince Rupert, I think you might actually see some more sun in the forecast. You get a nice long range. I want to show you, speaking of long range, first of all, the next sort of 7 days, things are looking unsettled. We've got temperatures sort of continuing to struggle to get above the 10, 11 degree mark. Notice I've got some sunshine for Friday, and yes, the risk for showers Saturday, Sunday, but those are light showers. There's just a slight chance of seeing some blue sky breaks come through, but it's a bit of a mixed bag for Saturday and Sunday, and not a ton of rain. So any Mother's Day plans on Sunday looking not too washed out. Monday, we'll keep the risk of showers in, but notice how temperatures do start to climb. We're hoping for that warm up Tuesday, Wednesday, before things return to cool starting late next week. And the long range models came out from NOAA south of the border, and we really looked to those to see what the next 2 week pattern brings. Really looked like the western half of the country will stick with cooler than normal weather for the next couple weeks. We might actually see a switch after that, Anita, but I'll keep us all posted.
It's definitely wait and see at this point. Thank you, Jo.
It is. You're welcome.
Well, for many, May 5th, or Cinco de Mayo, is a day for celebrating Mexican culture across North America. And down at the Commodore Ballroom, they're doing that with something undoubtedly Mexican tonight, lucha libre wrestling.
Top rope and a flip over of Javico. Quick up is Sharif.
Beyond the high-flying action of masked wrestlers at tonight's show, the sounds of Mexico will be filling the hall with performances from Mariachi Los Dorados.
We actually have a portion of our roster that spent a lot of time during COVID down in Mexico learning lucha wrestling. So to think that they get an opportunity here at home in Vancouver to really showcase what they did during the pandemic is kind of a dream come true for them.
Today also marks the return of wrestling to the Commodore Ballroom. Since before the pandemic, at one point it was a staple there, and it's been 3 years since wrestlers took to the ring at that venue. Cool stuff. I'm sure plenty of people heading down to watch that tonight. Okay, and another exhibit happening. A group of student artists with diverse needs and experience are getting a shot to showcase their work. Now, the exhibition is called Celebrate the Student Artists, and it's running May 3rd to 7th, so it's on right now. It's at the Yaletown Roundhouse exhibition. We spoke to some of the participants ahead of the big unveiling.
When we think of traditional artists, we don't exactly think of what can they do if there's something hindering their traditional abilities to do art. So for example, for a few of our students, they can't hold paintbrushes, so we looked into toilet brushes, scrub brushes, tools that we use around the classroom.
Where do you think the highway should go? Do you think it's going to go?
Yeah.
It's going to go all the way across?
Yeah.
And it goes over here. Do you have fun when you do art?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you look forward to doing it every day?
Yeah. Makes me feel happy.
Oftentimes, students that are being celebrated are your academically inclined students. And we just find that there hasn't been a platform for students with diverse needs.
Are you excited about the art show?
Yes.
So this is very exciting. It's the very first cross-district art exhibit for students with diverse needs.
I put 3 dinosaurs, and then one I just put the 2 archangels, and then the last one would be the giant bird and the woman who's looking up the skies. I like drawing dinosaurs and dragons, even the humans. That gives me inspired and challenging.
For so many of the parents, when they heard about a curated art gallery of works from their children, just the feedback has been amazing. They're amazed that something like this can happen to them, which to me says a lot about lack of opportunity.
Why did you do an art piece with keys? Do you remember why you picked it?
Just because I like to play with keys.
You love your keys so much.
In order to make community, to build community, we do need to uplift our most vulnerable, especially our students, and give them opportunities. Without opportunities, of course they can't participate.
Lots of unique things to check out this weekend, and that exhibit definitely high on the list. All right, that is it for CBC Vancouver News tonight. Thanks for watching. And once again, tomorrow night we are online only because of the NHL playoffs. We'll be right here at 6 o'clock. Have a good evening.